Now it's time for my last word on the scandal known here as the submarine affair, one of 4 ongoing probes into alleged corruption on the part of Prime Minister Netanyahu and an ever-widening circle of his friends, family, and former advisors. Now, it must be said that in this case, Netanyahu is not an official suspect and probably won't be. But with his personal attorney and cousin under house arrest, along with a former Navy chief and another retired admiral who was Netanyahu's pick to head the National Security Council, it's the first corruption probe in Israeli history to target the top tier of the defense establishment. While criminal abuse of office has put many ministers and even a prime minister here behind bars, only one general officer, an Air Force One star, was ever convicted of enriching himself through graft. In Israel's privileged, testosterone-driven defense establishment, it's not corruption, but usually sexual harassment that has tainted reputations and ended careers. Unlike many countries, the IDF and Israel's MOD have been largely immune to the corrupt arms deals that incriminated the son of British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, led to the conviction of a former South Korean chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and the death of an apparent whistleblower, a naval officer, found floating off the coast of Taiwan. And that's all the more reason to focus on this case, where those closest to Netanyahu allegedly counted on greed to co-opt the nation's top naval officer and others into awarding a 4-ship contract to a German shipyard. What's known here as the submarine affair should actually be called the ship affair, whose connection to Netanyahu is tenuous at best. On the fast-track contract for 3 new German subs, he can argue it was fully within his right to determine the size of Israel's strategic undersea force, and that he wasn't aware of the alleged scheming by those around him. Those subs, by the way, were negotiated directly between Netanyahu and Angela Merkel and funded from a special national account rather than the traditional defense budget. But the ship deal is different. It should have been a professional military procurement with multiple layers of oversight within the Navy, the IDF, and the Ministry of Defense. That key suspects, one of whom has turned state's evidence, allegedly manipulated the system for private gain, is something extraordinary, and it stinks to high heavens. It must be thoroughly probed, not in a political bid to ensnare Netanyahu, who has enough problems fending off much more concrete allegations from the other 3 cases under investigation, but to rid the ranks of rogue officers who dare to presume that the corruption so pervasive in Israeli politics can now be tolerated in military purchase programs. And that's my last word.